Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering What We Do in the Shadows, Season 5, Episode 1, The Mall. In this episode, the fact that this is titled The Mall, instead of the one where we find out that Guillermo is now a vampire, really undersells what happens in this episode. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you so much to Max for commissioning this episode. Max, if you are out there, thank you ever so much. I'm so excited to be starting on this show again. I think I read that there's one more season coming after this, or maybe you told me that. I don't recall. But, you guys, this was, what a surprise. What a beautifully constructed episode. I would love a show of hands of the number of you out there who watched this fully expecting that by the time we get to the end, we find out Guillermo isn't a vampire. Things didn't work out. For whatever reason, one of the two of them just at the last second sort of decided to pull back on the whole idea. I never thought that we were actually going to find out he had gone through with it and it had worked. This is the most interesting thing they could have done. I am so excited for the remainder of this season. I don't know if the whole season is going to be geared around, let's play this little game of keeping the secret from them, or if we're going to have a surprise. They find out within the first few episodes, and then we're just coping with it. I don't know. I don't really care. I am just delighted that something has been done that can't be undone. You can't walk it back. It's a done deal now. And seeing the way that Guillermo approaches being after being informed that this is a hugely insulting thing to do to Nandor, I can't wait, because he has been able to hide things, undo. Every other time there has been a way to sort of get out of the consequence of whatever it is. And the fact that it looks like there's not going to be a way to do that here. And even if there were, what if it turns out he's stronger than Nandor? I don't know how that works, if there's a lore behind it or if it's just sort of random in this universe. In the Sookie Stackhouse novels, the older the vampire is, the stronger physically they are. As you age, your strength and also the potency of your blood becomes more pronounced. So in that universe, you can drink vampire blood for what amounts to a sort of high, and also a boost to your physical attractiveness and your physical capabilities. And depending on who you drink from, what kind of vampire you drink from, you get really different results. And so your best bet is usually to go after older vampires for their blood, but it's very dangerous to do that. So I'm just curious, what if it turns out he's yeah, I need to kill you, and he can't? What if he can't? What then? That's all I'm asking. Oh my God. Okay, so let's just start from the beginning here, because I said, I wasn't prepared for any of this. I I really, the way that it starts with Guillermo being like, that's not what we're talking about right now. I figured that was, and I'm sure this is a purposeful misdirect. I thought that this was going to be, I'm not talking about it because it bums me out so much, the way that things went down. The fact that I didn't get what I wanted. And I'm just so happy to be wrong. I really am. So it starts off with a house meeting and all of them shit-talking Guillermo the way that they always do. And it turns out that what he wants to talk to them about is that they have been extremely indiscreet about their vampire escapades lately. And I love the way that this is done. He's just like, well, you guys have been relying a little bit too much lately on the whole mesmerism thing. And we get to see that Nandor is at like a basketball game and he slips on the stairs and he goes down in front of the whole audience and players and tells everybody to forget that they saw a slip or who slipped. You guys, there's two things I love about this. One, how over the top this is. And two, the fact that likely nobody even like barely noticed. And three, that this is the exact sort of thing that those of us who deal with anxiety are like remembering when we're falling asleep at night. Is that time that we slipped in front of a crowd of people and we cringe to remember it when literally nobody cared. Like it was just such a not big deal. But in our heads, we're just like, oh my God, that was so humiliating. I can't believe that happened. And I am just delighted at the idea that somebody who has been alive like thousands of years, who has superpowers, is just as self-conscious at this as a regular person would be. I don't know. That just delights me a lot. Miss T says, I'm cackling just listening to you describe it again, the basketball game. Great. I love knowing that my descriptions are able to like make anything, because sometimes I feel like, should I be just describing the whole scene the way that I am? Like, I don't know whether that's too much upon occasion, but this was just such a great reveal. And the whole way that none of them even want to listen to him. And it cuts back and forth between like him attempting to get everybody's attention and Laszlo calling him once again by the wrong name. When he calls him Gizmo, that just feels like a nickname. But he calls him like Gerardo or something at one point. All of this is the usual that we are prepared for from this crowd. They have no respect for him. They have made that abundantly clear. And it becomes understandable a little bit later why exactly Guillermo is putting up with this. But we'll get to that later. So then we find out that Nandor, who keeps sort of chiming in, being like, let him finish talking. I want to hear what Guillermo has to say. That he has been reading that old self-help standby, I'm okay, you're okay. And is attempting to like integrate that line of thinking and almost sort of posturing as the one in the group that is the wise, patient one. And this is also a very like understandable human thing. I can't be alone in this. And I have to assume if you're listening to Unspoiled, that you also can be this way, where whatever you are currently consuming, whether it is a book or a television show, can temporarily become your entire personality. And, this is not me like saying this in a judgmental way at all. I am 1000% like this. And it's a really tricky, there's one thing to just be deeply engaged in the content, to be absorbed in the world, whatever. But then, there's the whole, I can't seem to relate to the world outside of whatever it is that I'm currently reading or watching while I'm reading or watching it. Everything is filtered through that lens at all times. And that's sort of where I can wind up occasionally. We call this a hyperfixation. And it shifts and moves in any given direction, and no one can tell, for me, where it's going to land. The hyperfixation could be, I'm watching The Gilded Age, and now everything is in cut crystal stemware, and all of my outfits are a little bit too involved, and my hair is up, and I keep buying brooches. Or it could be a completely different direction, where I saw a few Instagram posts from these beautiful homes and these people lounging in silk robes. And now I need a silk robe of my own. And I am spending every waking moment shopping for a silk robe and a lovely slip to wear with it, and high heeled slippers. It's whatever it is, I get sucked into it in a way that's not healthy. It's not sustainable. It's not helpful to me or anyone else. And depending on the note that it hits for me, it can disappear just as quickly. Sometimes not. Sometimes it'll stick around, and I'll be like, no, this is just sort of how I live now. And then there are times where I will have a cart full of stuff from Amazon, and I will sleep on it for 2 days, and I'll wake up and look at that cart and be like, my God, I was really about to buy all of this. That is insane. And I delete everything from my cart and move on with my life. But Nandor, he has the same quality to him. It feels in some ways like having been Nandor the Relentless, and that being his whole shtick, for lack of a better way to say that. It sounds disrespectful to call it a shtick, but we're all friends here. We can do this. I feel like, in a way, just raiding and conquering was his hyperfixation, and now he's living in a world where that's not what he can do as a hobby anymore, and he is searching for something that will be his identity. And so we kind of get this, throughout every season, there are various things that he gets really over involved with, and completely at the expense of the rest of the way his life is set up, So I'm interested to see if this particular bent continues, the self-help thing, or if he's going to find yet another thing that he's going to get involved with and obsessed with. But and I love that he calls this some ancient text buried in Laszlo's library for years and years, and he blows the dust off it, and it is an older book. I thought when he picked it out that it was going to be even newer, that it might be The Secret, or the life-changing magic of tidying up, something like that, but yeah, this whole introduction leads to Guillermo stalking out of the room, and he's pretty upset. And the conclusion that they all come to is that they forgot his birthday, which, it wasn't, but that's what they decide. And they decide that they're going to go out to dinner together as a group and take him, even though, it turns out he can still eat. And I was sort of thinking, okay, well, if he eats at this dinner, that'll be evidence. I wasn't really sure if the show was going to reveal to us by the end whether or not he was a vampire. If this sort of like, did he or did he not, was going to go on for another couple of episodes and we would find out eventually, you know. I'm glad that they didn't. I'm really glad to find it out at the end of this one. But I could see it, why they might toy with us a little bit longer. But it turns out, like, he can still eat human food at this stage, so it wouldn't have been evidence. And, you know, the rest of the group, of course, just winds up ordering stuff to have it. I kept forgetting about the thing with garlic with the Baron. Do you guys remember that? And how he just, like, vomited blood in a gout for, like, a full minute after eating some? But anyway, so this is what they have decided in order to cheer him up. Meanwhile, this is not what is actually bothering him, but what is going on is something that he can't really talk to them about. So this is when we start the story about Derek and him paying Derek to change him into a vampire. I love the energy of this. Oh my God. He just goes into the back room at the like bodega with Derek. And I love that Derek immediately, oh yeah, totally, no problem. And I kind of expected that maybe like this big moment at the end of the last season was going to open this season and it would be Derek being like, no, I'm not doing that. What? Or, you know, saying that there was some sort of restriction on whether or not he was allowed to, this sort of thing. But it's an immediate, oh no, yeah, that's fine. I'll do that for you, buddy. And he tries to pretend that this is something that he has done before, but it's not, which becomes very quickly apparent. Also, Guillermo is sort of acting like he doesn't know if he really wants to do it or not. So I was sort of thinking as this began that there might be a point where Guillermo realized that he actually didn't want to become a vampire after all, that now he was faced with the choice and that there was a real possibility for him that it was going to be too real, because that can happen. You know, we think we want all kinds of things, and then you have a moment of just facing the reality of what that would be like, and you're suddenly going, wait, hold on, do I? But no, so Derek bites him, and of course there's an interruption at first where there's something up with the toilet and he starts to walk away. I know that this is not something pleasant to think about, but he says, I have to take care of the toilet now, because if it's clogged, people will just keep going on top of what's already in there, and nobody wants that. Have you guys ever been to one of those like public bathrooms where that has happened? Oh my God, y'all. It is. I went to, this is one of those things that I was like, I feel like I shouldn't do this, but I took a picture because it was just so beyond belief. I was in a Walmart and I had to pee really bad. And normally, because I need room, because I'm fat, I usually go into the handicap stall or the next biggest one, because sometimes there's like a larger one that's not handicapped technically. Or I guess accessible stall, sorry. And I walked into that bathroom and immediately was like, it reeks in here. What is going on? And then I opened that stall and it looked like somebody had just started a fan and thrown diarrhea into it. It was all over the wall. It was all over like the pipe and the handle, everything. It was like, what happened? Like, that was my main question, was how did this occur? Something went horribly wrong for somebody, and I don't even know how this was achieved. So anyway, I'm so sorry, but I took a photo of it and posted it on Facebook and was like, you guys, I think I put it in the comments because I was like, I'm not posting this as a main image and making people see this, but I'm going to say, get ready if you want to see the pictures in the comments. And everybody was just like, oh, that poor person. Like, what the fuck? Because nobody could figure it out. But anyway, so Guillermo finally is like, dude, can you handle that please afterward? And it turns out that Derek eventually bites him, but he doesn't bite him and like drink. He bites and then sort of backs off and lets this like artery that's spurting just go all over the fucking place. And then when Guillermo is like, hey, I'm going to need some blood of yours, he says, oh, yeah, the thing is, I do not do well at the sight of my own blood. And Guillermo tries to be like, all right, you know what, I'm just going to bite before he can really get too squicky and overthink it. But when he grabs him and bites him, he's like, oh, sorry, it's really hard to break the skin. And he's not even able to get through, which I can imagine this being the sort of thing that would be harder than it seems like it would be. I bite as a way of showing affection, one of my toxic traits. And I could see myself drawing blood pretty easily, but if that's not just the way that you live, yeah, sure. Why would that even present itself to you? So eventually he gets through. He says something to Derek, like, don't look. And Derek's like, don't look at what? And then turns and looks and faints. But just because he's fainted doesn't stop Guillermo. All he needs to do is consume it. And he does. And you see the flash in his eyes as it affects his system. And that, you guys, I was genuinely startled. I was starting to be like, well, was that enough blood? Is that adequate? Like, I wasn't even sure if I remembered how this went. And I had to think back to the first season when Nadia turns that college girl, who I wish to God we got to see more of her story. But Nadia drank from this girl and then fed the girl her blood in like a flask, if I'm not mistaken. So it wasn't really any like large amount, and it still took effect completely. So it turns out Guillermo, this was 16 days ago, I think he says, and he is still not really sure that he's seeing any effects here. It's like, you know, so far, nothing has changed. He can still go out in the sun. He is still able to eat human food. Everything it's almost making him wonder if it even worked. But we saw the look, like his eyes. So we know something happened. And I was about to be like, are they going to make it that Guillermo is like the one person that vampirism doesn't take hold on? Like, treating it almost like a virus, and he's like the one person who's immune to it. I was wondering if the fact that he is from a race of vampire hunters, that might be true, like that he isn't able to be turned because of whatever it is in his family history. But then we reach a point where he's going to the eye doctor, and this was actually one of the first things that I thought of when they're joking around at the restaurant about what if Guillermo were to be turned into a vampire, and him flying around with like those little glasses on. And I know that was a joke because they have to be aware as vampires themselves that like all of your senses sharpen. So he wouldn't have those glasses anymore. But I still was sort of like, would he? Like, is this something that he could just cast aside? And once he says he's going to the eye doctor, I was like, oh, okay, here it is. We're about to find out. And sure enough, lady comes out from in back and she's like, hey, I don't know who screwed up, but if you've been wearing this prescription your entire life, somebody did, because you don't need a prescription. You have 20/20 vision. You actually have better than 20/20 vision. And of course, Guillermo is just like, really? Well. It's the first evidence that he has that there's some actual effects happening. And you guys, I don't know if that's because he's turning, or is it like a completely unrelated thing? Is it due to his vampire hunting history? Like, do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if there are any perks physically that come with that job. We know that Guillermo canonically has been a very good fighter, that he has like a lot of dexterity and strength and can be like acrobatic basically at times. So there's a possibility that like maybe his vision is much better now that he has begun to connect with these abilities. But he has been doing that for a couple of seasons now. And one would think that maybe he would start to realize he didn't need his glasses when he woke up anymore. So the fact that that hasn't come up, I have to think is due to the vampire blood, but and transforming. But I also am like, does that transformation happen the same way for somebody who has this lineage that he has? Like, maybe the transformation is different or stalls out, or I don't know. So I'm really, really curious if there's like, Ms. T says, I'm so glad they made it clear at the end that it worked with the eyes. I'm just glad they did that part. I'm talking about the flash in the eyes in the bodega. Yeah, exactly. And that's like what I'm thinking, like, is it possible that it worked, in quotes, in a different way for Guillermo than it would work for a regular person? Is it possible that he gets the perks of being a vampire, but he is still able to eat regular food and go out during the day because now he's leveled up somehow and he has these like abilities, but it's not the same as, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to say that I particularly want that exactly. I'm not against it, but I am really curious whether or not this sort of effect on somebody who has vampire hunting in their blood in a way that feels like that is a distinct superpower. The way he suddenly is able to move seemed to surprise him when he came across these abilities, and the way that his family reacted being around vampires, and it seemed like they were almost unconscious of their rising reaction to Nadja, and the like, you know, being in the house with them all. The whole energy of it felt very much like, if you come from this like line of people, you don't get control over whether you are a vampire hunter. It's just sort of part of you, and it's an involuntary reaction. Like, the vampires that Guillermo kills, he didn't choose to kill those vampires. It was almost like a reflex in the moment when he stabbed them. So there's a part of me that's sort of like, is he gonna have some sort of reaction to this that doesn't exactly line up with a regular human being's reaction? I don't know. And I don't even really know if I would want that. Like, part of me thinks it would be fun. Part of me is still just so blown away at the fact that he has finally gotten here after all this time that I want it to be that he becomes a vampire just in the regular way, because I feel like, as much as I know it apparently is going to be something dangerous for him now, I just want him to show all of them that he was able to get it done on his own and that he doesn't need them, because fuck them. And then there's another part of me that's like, well, if it didn't take effect on him the same way that it does a regular person, and he is able to like integrate it with the other powers he had as a vampire hunter, that might be best, because then he doesn't have to fear for his life. He'll be strong enough to basically tell Mandor to go fuck himself, and he won't have the fear surrounding it because he's able to completely take care of himself, you know? So there's just a lot of ways they could do this, and I'm really, really excited. I just never expected, you guys. And the fact that he has like drank from Derek, and then Derek's boss comes in back and is just like, toilet again. And he says it into a back room, sprayed with blood, like it's a set of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And he doesn't even raise an eyebrow at it. It's just a wonderful little scene. I really enjoy anytime you've got a sort of running joke about a person who is either so oblivious that they don't notice things, or is so run down and like ground down by their daily job that they can't be bothered to pay attention or notice, because who gives a shit? That's always funny to me. So I'm going to back up a little bit, because I, of course, had to talk about that whole thing out of the gate. But let's talk about the fact that, oh my God, you guys, the fact that Colin Robinson is working at this steakhouse. I can't remember the name of it, but y'all, I swear, Red Rock Steakhouse, that's what it's called. Kiddos, this was really good. I really enjoy the way that they handled Colin Robinson's character, in that they are able to put him in any given situation and have him be absolutely infuriating to deal with. And that they know it's going to be different depending on the location he's at. So when he's in the office, it's just these little things that get under everybody's skin, but are a really innocuous irritation, right? But when you think of like servers that drive you up the wall, and we've all had this kind of thing happen, they hit this whole like energy so hard. First of all, the point where he's like trying to explain to them what is on the menu, and he grabs a chair and sits down backward on the chair. Have y'all ever had this with a server? I have had the sit backwards on a chair, and I have also had the sit, like, basically nudge into the booth with you. I had that at like a diner. You will, oh my God, look. I don't think of myself as somebody who's got a real stick up their ass, but in truth, I kind of am. Like, depending on what it is we're talking about, I have a very, this is the way things are done and you don't do it a different way kind of vibe on certain things. I'm really, let's follow the tradition here, or let's do whatever's the politest thing, you know. And the moment when this person like basically nudged one of us aside so that they could fit sitting with us in the booth, I thought the top of my head was going to pop off. It was just so it felt so presumptuous. It felt so like, this isn't what any of us are. What are you doing? You're not our friend. Like, I was disgusted by it. I was so pissed. It was like, and so this, and then he tells these ladies, like, could I interest you in some Prosexy? It's a fun way to say Prosecco. Oh God. Yep. Another one of trying to make like weird, lame, punny jokes. And there's a really big difference between a punny joke that's like, you get that it's goofy and bad and you are leaning into that, you know, because that's part of the fun of it, is like, yeah, this is real grown worthy, right? But you can tell the difference when somebody is doing it for that reason and when somebody is doing it because they actually don't really get how painfully unfunny a thing is. And oh God, it's such a shame when you run into that. You don't know like how to handle it because you want to laugh in a way that's sort of derisive, but then you see the look on their face and it doesn't match the reaction that you were about to have. So then you have to rein it in and it's all awkward and confusing. And just like the all evening long, he's doing things like he's not making eye contact or writing things down. So of course you've got people being like, are you sure you're getting all of this? And him assuring them, oh yeah, I never write anything down. Another one. Now, some servers don't write things down and they get it like completely correct first try, no problem. I have met plenty of servers who can rely on pure memory, which is never not astonishing to me, but they are very legit with it. Those people, though, as you are giving them your order, are looking at you in the eye and clearly memorizing your face, what you're saying, and remembering exactly where to put the plate when they come back and set your food down in front of you. And he is giving the clear indication he is not paying attention in the slightest. There's just nothing registering. And these people have to continue to give their order with a full awareness that this man doesn't remember anything they just said. So whatever they get is going to be a surprise to them. And I just really enjoyed this whole sequence because I can be really, what's the word I want? I can be so forgiving to people in the service industry to the point of like, okay, you really do need to have some expectation of performance. And I feel guilty when I hold them to a certain standard at times. But that results in just like getting taken advantage of, you know, depending on the situation. And there was something about the fact that he's doing this all on purpose. This was just such a delightful little sequence here, and him sitting by this woman who has like fallen asleep at her table and he has clearly been feeding on her. So then his friends turn up. They want him. At first he tries to be like, is your party here? Because if you're not, can you guys please get up and go wait in the tiny crowded vestibule where the cigarette smoke comes in? Which made me fucking cackle. But then when they say, we're staying here and get us some food so it looks like we're eating, and he gets them all jalapeno poppers. And later on when he brings the food, he's like, okay, here are the jalapeno poppers, some sliders, and a chocolate pudding. Just a weird combo of stuff. I enjoy this as the backdrop. They found a really good way to involve Colin Robinson in the scene, but more creatively, because if I had been told the scene was coming and that they were all going to the restaurant together, my assumption would have been Colin Robinson is going to be here to terrorize the waitstaff, basically, to be really difficult so that there's an ugly confrontation that he's able to feed off of. And it's a lot less fun to watch waitstaff get like bullied than it is to watch somebody who is a bully be waitstaff. I don't know if I would call Colin Robinson a bully and like mean it. I mean, he is like he's trying to get a rise out of people, so that's like the whole thing, right? But is that really the word? I don't know, but I'm gonna go with it. It's fine. So yeah, I just thought that this was a good creative way of doing it. And then we find out here, so Nadja's twin, the doll, does she go by a different name? Is she just Nadja doll? The Nadja doll? I don't know if there's been like, an official different title for her. But Nadja, when she was drunk in the last season, she was having a real drinking problem with boozy blood. Apparently sat down on the doll and broke her legs into a million pieces. And so she had to replace the bottom half of her doll with some other like weird, it almost looked like a dancing Santa, like that kind of thing. But she replaces her and there's a button on the toe of the doll and they're like, press it. And she's like, don't do it. And not just like, oh, come on, I'm going to do it. It's fun. And she presses the button and the doll lifts up her own skirt and like shakes and sings. Oh my God. It's playing I Feel Good. And as she is like playing I Feel Good from the bass, the doll herself is saying, I hate you. I'm going to kill you all. And just utterly miserable. Oh, what have I done? You know what you did. This is so humiliating. I can't, you guys, with the, like, being like, oh, I'm so sorry. You would not have pressed that button, Nadja, if you were sorry. That's what it comes down to. And you did. So I think that says everything. That's all we need to know, is that you are not sorry and you are in fact laughing at her. But sure, I'm so sorry. Shut up. No, you're not. I'm on the doll's side with this one. So the conversation that they have here is talking about Guillermo and what could have happened, why he is so cranky. And he said something about how I'm not going to be around forever. And they talk about how maybe he's dying because that's something that humans do. And then Nandor says, or I suppose eventually, perhaps he could become a vampire himself. And they all start laughing. And what an idiot. It could happen. It could happen. And they continue discussing the like ridiculousness of him being a vampire right up until he comes inside. And when he does, they don't hide the fact that they were talking about this. They just keep making fun of him to his face because that's the way they roll. They're very mean. And he jokes around with them, trying to pretend that he's part of the joke because he's sussing out how they would react to something. And he says, oh yeah, like what if I was walking down the street and I saw Dracula and he said, I can make you a vampire. And I said, yes. And very abruptly, all of them stop laughing. And Nadja says that is one of the greatest humiliations that you can offer a master, is a familiar going off and being turned by somebody else. And Nandor says, yeah, if you were to do that, I would have to kill you. I wouldn't want to do it, but I would have to do it. And he seems truly sad. Like, what I just considering this being a possibility is such a shame. And it would be an obligation I couldn't avoid. But I wouldn't enjoy it. So I just wanted to make it clear that I wouldn't enjoy it. And later on, when he brings it up again, because Guillermo's like, you wouldn't really kill me, would you? He's like, well, yeah, I would. Like, I wouldn't like it, but there would just be no other option. And this is why I'm sort of hoping there's a different result from him getting turned, because maybe it would, the reaction might be that he winds up strong enough that he can take care of himself and he doesn't have to worry for his own safety. But who knows? You know, I don't know. I really like the idea of him getting to show them up in the end. It's been such a thing that Guillermo is the goof that gets taken advantage of. There's a whole portion in the scene with him and Derek where he says something about how Nandor has done a lot of really nice things for me over the years. And there's a pause, and he's like, I'm sorry, I know this seems like a weird long pause, but this is for the editing. So when I say that, then they do a montage of all of the nice things that he's done. And I just wanted to give them time and a chance to like put that in. And then the camera just lingers on him and Derek because Nandor has never done a nice thing for Guillermo in his life. And there's nothing to show. But Guillermo is standing there really thinking that they're doing this. And I really wanted one of them to ask, like, what is something that you would like us to include? What moment would you want for us to add to this montage? Because I am truly curious. He convinces himself that he isn't being treated badly in these off moments. But when we see him at the house, he never seems to think he's being treated well. There isn't a moment when he is with everybody else that it seems like he feels good about the way Nandor is treating him. So I'm really wanting to know, like, what is it that you are imagining in your head as something that they can show? Because every time there has been a hint of Nandor or any of the other vampires treating Guillermo like a person, they almost immediately follow it up with something like really insulting, or it turns out like the nice thing they did had strings attached, or that they did this nice thing with an intent outside of him simply enjoying himself, like it looked like a gift, but it was actually work, you know, like any number of those things. And so it's a sort of a weird, like, Guillermo, if you're seeing somebody who's treated poorly, telling themselves that they are actually being treated well, one would think you would have more moments of them being treated badly, but not seeming to be aware they're being treated badly in the moment. That at the time that it happened, you as a viewer are off to the side going, oh, honey, oh, that is not what you think it is, while we sit there watching knowing that they're being humiliated. But it seems like every time he's being humiliated, Guillermo is aware that's what's happening. It's never really like, there's no sense of him not understanding the insult that's being thrown in his face. So that's my like main question here, is just, what does Guillermo think was done like in a generous way to be nice to him? What example is he even imagining? Because I can't come up with like a single instance. But anyway, I did like the long pause and how awkwardly that goes on for, oh my God. So eventually they leave the restaurant and they have all of these leftovers that he's carrying in these bags. And as they're leaving, he tells them that he has to go to the mall because there is an optometrist in there. And evidently, they have never been to the mall. They don't even know what a mall contains. So, they pretend they're going to sit and wait and people watch while he goes in and does his thing. I don't know what he thought. Like, come on, Guillermo. Are you serious? But they all go off and do their own individual things. So Nandor goes to this weird, like, gift shop and buys a Shrek t-shirt. I always imagine, when I see things like this in television shows, that maybe there was a point at which somebody either stumbled across a really hilarious shirt in some store and they decided, like, okay, we're gonna buy this shirt and hang on to it for something because this is truly ridiculous. Or maybe they ran into a person who was wearing a shirt that they were like, I have to commit this to memory because it is incredible to me that anybody purchased this and then ended up wearing it in public. But the shirt, it's got Shrek and it says, check yourself before you Shrek yourself. And it's called like Gilly's Gifts or something, the store. It's all weird t-shirts and hats, and it seems like there's a little bit of like faux, what's the word I want? There's some like kind of weed paraphernalia, but not like pipes and stuff. I mean like mugs that have pot leaves on them. I think that what they were kind of going for here was like a Spencer's Gifts sort of energy. I'm saying this and I'm like, Spencer's Gifts is a thing everywhere, right? This isn't something that's like specific to Connecticut or the Northeast and when I say everywhere, I mean in the United States. I have to assume there isn't a Spencer's Gifts abroad. But Spencer's was like, when I was young, it was the kind of place that you would go to get the sort of like goofy gifts that were over the hill jokes, or that you would get like a mug that when it got hot, the bikini babe, her bikini would fade away and she would be naked. Like those kinds of stupid, crass type of gifts, you know? That was their bread and butter. And it was always sort of weird to me because it was that sort of gift type that felt like it was for old people, even then. But the decor of the place was all like neon lights and those what do you call them? You know those balls that you put your hand on and like the electricity shoots out and touches your fingers, or like lava lamps. Like they had a look to them that felt kind of stoner-like, but then all of the gifts and merchandise just felt like it was geared towards people who were like 50 years old. And so it always was confusing to me. But anyway, he gives this girl a couple of what he calls coupons, and one of them is for an oil change, and that coupon has expired 18 years ago, and the other is a cutout of a picture of Ryan Seacrest from a magazine. Meanwhile, Nadja has decided that the best way to fix her doll is to go to a Build-A-Bear workshop. I have never gone to a Build-A-Bear. This one is set up in such a way that you go up to like a desk at the front and tell them what it is you want. And it seems like you like tell them and then you back away and they do the thing. Is that how that works? I always thought that the point of Build-A-Bear was that you got to put the pieces together yourself. There's a sort of thing like Build-A-Bear in the Star Wars in Disneyland, where or Disney World, where you build your own droids. And Owen and I each built one. I built a purple BB-8, and he built what looks more like an R2-D2, but it was like all black. And the fun of the way that they like set it up was that you come in and there's this conveyor belt of parts, and you have to find the parts you want to build the droid and make sure that you get all of the pieces. And you can make it so that the parts don't match. You can make it so that your whole droid is assembled out of different colors and give it a really like kind of patchwork look, like it's something used, that you replaced parts with whatever you could find, which is a really fun, like aesthetically a fun way to go. But I did mine like solid purple, and it was just a fun thing. Like you finding the pieces, they really make it seem like it's a matter of chance. Of course it's not, but like they make it feel like a game. And then they bring you over to like a cubby, and somebody assists you with putting the parts together in the right way. And then they like take the partially finished thing and put it into a cage and flip a switch and make it seem like, oh, we're charging it up, and hand it back to you. And then they're like, okay, now push this button, and then it turns on. And they've just put like a battery into it or whatever. But it's just a whole process. And I was really surprised that it seems like the way they have it done here is that you just give Build-A-Bear your specs, and they like put it together and hand you a finished bear, which doesn't, like, you could just order something online, I would think. But what she wants, I guess, is for her, like, the part for her doll. So she says, did we make a selection? And Nadja says, I am looking for the exact proportions of Venus herself when her pussy was serving witch's tea, nipples so sharp they're on the most wanted list, and a taint that can sign its own checks. And this lady says, I meant more like, which hat did you want? And she says, oh, rainbow sombrero for sure. A taint that could write its own checks. I don't even know what that means, and I'm not going to ask any further questions. I feel like if I don't know what that means, that's my problem. So, yeah. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, that we see the finished, like, bare bottom. Oh my god. Not that kind of bare bottom. You know what I mean? Do we know? I don't think we do. Laszlo, meanwhile, is just walking around the mall and is pointing out different, like, stores and saying what he thinks they do. The Bikini Warehouse he thinks is for, like, a brothel. There's a children's village, which he thinks sells kids. But it turns out what he's actually doing is following Laszlo to see what it is he's doing. I love that there's a merry-go-round, and Nandor is like, I found John, and he's riding this horse. Oh my god. But I don't know what Laszlo makes of the fact that when he goes to the eyeglass place, like, does Laszlo hear that Guillermo doesn't need glasses anymore? I don't know, does he overhear what Guillermo says about, like, finishing up the turning? I don't know what Laszlo picked up on here and how much of this is, like, you know what I'm saying? Is Guillermo in danger, actually? I hope not. The thing with Laszlo is that he can sit on information for a while. He is not somebody that, like, goes and just does something with info he finds. He'll often sort of wonder and consider and do the talking head thing to the camera for a while before taking action. So I guess we'll see eventually. But the episode ends with Guillermo had said something about how he was going to go to Foot Locker, and after he puts Nandor to bed, like Nandor points out, oh, for a birthday present, I got you a Foot Locker. And Guillermo drags the Foot Locker, like, down the hall, and he climbs into it to sleep. Which, I guess, if you're going to have to, like, be safe from the light, if you don't know at what point light is going to be harmful to you, it's probably on the safer side to do that. But his bedroom doesn't have any windows in it, so probably he could have just slept in his room, and that would have been okay, I would think. But, oh wait, is it in the hall? No, I guess he dragged it into, no, it is in the hall. I don't think his room is big enough to fit that thing in there. It was hard to tell. But yeah, that's the end of the episode. So I'm really, really excited. I can't wait to see where we're going with this, because this is just such a surprising turn of events. I didn't think we were doing it, guys, and I'm delighted we're here. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you again, Max, for commissioning this and for commissioning the whole season.
Really, really excited. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.